It is T. Watts and TR on the YouTube and podcast homes for BamaOnline.com. Travis Reier, senior analyst alongside site publisher Tim Watts. Tim, I'm fresh off the morning walk, so I feel rejuvenated. I've got the energy. I've got the juice today. What about you? You ready to do this again?
Now I'm ready to do it, but there's been no walking just yet. So I like it better when it's cold though. So we're getting more in my range. I don't really the heated walks, the hot walks, they're not really for me.
Not for you. Yeah, it's getting to be, more of a true fall feel outside. And when it's fall outside, of course, we feel like football even more than we typically do. And boy, this Alabama team, Tim, continues to improve with an emphasis on Jalen Milroe and that offense. Just, I think, multiple areas too that you can look at with that offense when you talk about the improvement. We saw it once again in the 49-21 win over Kentucky. Just your thoughts coming out of that latest trip up to the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the questions we had going into the season, the offensive line, the drops from the wide receivers were a major question. Jalen Milroe, obviously, the quarterback situation we didn't know much about. We just hadn't seen it, small sample size. And to see them click, I mean, they come out in Kentucky, give you the perfect drive you want to open that game, right? Ended up converting a couple of third down plays that they had to have. Jalen did a great job twice. Play calling was good. And then, to find guys wide open. I mean, to have that time, the offensive line's giving him that time. Jalen's more comfortable in that pocket, more comfortable running the ball as well. And it's not like he's designed. It's not a designed run as much as it's an opportunistic run. I mean, he sees those guys dropping back 7 or 8 because they're trying not to give up the deep pass. But if you got a good offensive line, opening some holes, which I thought they did a great job of. In the second half, I thought the offensive line was just dominant in the second half. I mean, they
Yeah.
were just able to come out and establish that run, which is what you want with the big lead. So, faced a little adversity. So, saw the defense put their back against the wall a few times, had a breakdown. But again, how you don't love this team and the attitude they give you, and they never get down and they pick each other up. Kool-Aid's fumble, for instance, Jalen's interception, they're there picking them up, saying, don't worry about it. You never see them hang their head. And then after that, of course, Kool-Aid came back, had a really nice punt return and a clean, fair catch for the first time in a while. So, maybe you're worried about fumbling so much that when you fumble, you just get it out of the way and you're back to normal. So,
Kind of like
overall,
shooting a basketball, right? We made that analogy before. You go 0 for 10 from 3, you got to keep taking your shot, and eventually
yeah.
they go in. And even if it's a layup or a free throw, it can help get you back on track. But you said it. This offense now has reached a point where it feels like if the defense does give something up or special teams has a rare letdown, it can answer the bell. We saw that early in the second half. You talk about Milroe's running early, sort of impacting defenses as the game moves along because he hits those runs. Then you get those linebackers coming up, and then you get Roydell slipping behind the
Yeah.
linebackers, and Jalen keeps his eyes up, dumps it over the top. You get good downfield blocking. Again, areas of this offense that continue to improve: perimeter blocking, tight end blocking, the offensive line coming along continuously, as we've talked about. But then you come back in the third quarter. Kentucky cuts it to 14 at
Yeah, they do.
28-14 coming out of the half. The
Yeah.
defense, a couple of mistakes on that Kentucky possession, but boy, there goes the offense right down the field again. And third downs, man. Third
They're
down for
clutch.
this offense, the last 2 games, 18 of 25 they've converted. And it was
Crazy.
another big one in the second half that really helped put that game away at 35-14.
Yeah, I think that one of the things you love about this team is the fourth down defense, fourth and short. They're really good, and the offense on third down and extending plays. And like you said, they gave them a chance. Gave twice. They felt they were in the game, and Alabama had answer drives, which was important, obviously. But again, I mean, the defense was fantastic. That was a legit Kentucky drive. They had one really good drive, I felt. It was very nice. And then they had the long run. But other than that, they gave up like 250 yards combined. And that includes what was that 70-something yard run they gave up late.
76 in the fourth
Yeah,
quarter.
it
Yeah.
was a dude. That was a gash. I mean, they were hovering under 200. That crossed 200 and 250 range. And then that one drive. But other than that, they were really good. Good defense and smart plays, getting them off the field, getting the offense back on the field. The offense was really clicking. So really complete and clean game. You didn't see a whole lot to win the SEC. And you have to always wonder, I mean, trap game, you worry about that trap game, right? And hey, and I'm one to, after Arkansas, I'm one that's also got my, hey, let's get them going early kind of vibe to me. But they did exactly what you probably wanted them to do.
Yeah, and Kentucky football crowds, like, they go into a game like that wanting to believe, but not totally believing.
Yeah.
So the earlier you can go ahead, and kind of like Mississippi State too, when you go to Starkville, and Alabama did that there too, got out to the 14-0 lead at MSU. Same thing, 21-0 at Kentucky. So that's what you like to do against fan bases that will show up. They'll show up and pack the stadium. A lot of that has to do with it being Alabama's in town. But the earlier you can sort of discourage and kind of reaffirm the deep belief for these fans that, we probably really don't have a chance in this game.
Yeah, they seem to be exiting pretty soon after halftime. And when I don't remember what point in the third quarter I saw the wide angle shot, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, a
some
lot
of
of blue, and it wasn't shirts.
Some of us are enjoying this beautiful day outside the stadium now. So good job of keeping them quiet. And I still think Kentucky's a good, solid team. Obviously, all their losses have been to pretty good teams, I believe. But you want to go in there, you want to handle your business, you want to get to Chattanooga, you want to win that SEC, get that behind you, SEC West. And again, it shocked me yesterday. I guess it was Saturday, and I think Dr. Stash said on the board it was the last SEC West champion. I mean, kind of hit me like, what the hell?
Doing away with the divisions,
Yeah, like it's crazy. But it was cool. Jimmy pointed out, you pointed out, was Alabama won the first one and the last one, which is kind of something, you can carry on the rest of the time. But it's just weird to hear the SEC West is no more.
Yeah, doing away with the divisions. And, one of the, I'm sure, unintended or unexpected luxuries to come from that game at Lexington that you hope to certainly carry over to this week was you got to play a lot of guys.
Yeah,
I mean, the fourth quarter was pretty much 2s and 3s for Alabama out there on both sides of the ball. You've got an FCS opponent coming to Tuscaloosa this weekend. I'm sure as you get into the second half of this game, and I know Nick Saban won't like us talking like this, Tim, but a continuation of that, playing young guys, and sort of the benefit of being able to do that. I would say more so these days for the immediate future, in case you have some injuries here down the stretch, you're at least getting some guys some opportunities. I'd say more so the immediate future, because before the transfer portal, Tim, games like this was an opportunity for young players to put good stuff on tape in terms of their evaluation by their coaching staff that they're playing for right now. Some of these guys, if we're being honest, are trying to put good stuff on tape for when that portal window opens in a few weeks.
Yeah. I mean, that could possibly be Ty Simpson. He's a guy that a lot of people have talked about possibly hitting the portal. I think that is on the table to some degree. I haven't talked to anybody in the Simpson circle, but he put some good plays on tape for him, and good for him. He had some nice plays, and he's had some moments this year. But obviously Jalen took that job, and that he's not giving that up anytime soon. I mean, his progression, it's weird for me that Saturday you saw 3 of the best performances in history. You saw the Missouri kid go gonzo against Tennessee. You saw Jalen Daniels go bananas at night. But Jalen Milroe, 3 touchdowns rushing, 3 touchdowns passing, everything he's been, everything he's done this year. You go from game 1 to this game, and it's been amazing what you've seen him do. And you know what? There's still a lot of meat on the bone for him to get better. He's going to get better. We're seeing that. He's get little bit by little bit. I'm not sure it's a little bit by little bit. Some of it's big chunks. It wasn't long ago he couldn't throw the intermediate, the medium passes, and now he's able to do that. Just throwing the deep ball, wouldn't run. Now he's running. So pretty exciting team. And again, props to the offensive line, because Jalen gets a lot of the credit, and he should. He's been great, but that offensive line has also improved. I mean, we went from, a lot of questions early on, establishing the run, protecting the quarterback. And I do think Jalen helps the offensive line. He knows his pocket better now. But I think working together, they did a really good job, because I know Wolf early on, Coach Wolford probably was under a little bit of question. Can he do, what kind of offensive lines he putting together? But he's put together a pretty good one.
Yeah, you saw earlier in the season, Jalen at the top of his drop really wasn't helping his tackles a lot. He would squat or go out the back, sort of
Yeah.
fade out of the pocket. Now you're seeing him take that little bit of a hop, that little bit of a step or two up into the pocket. That really opens up not only his vision, but the opportunity to impact linebackers and safeties, because now this guy has the potential to break the run game as an extender. And so now that he's doing that, it's just adding to the stress that opposing defenses are feeling when they're in those situations.
And I think we've discussed this before. Your natural instinct isn't to step into, the mosh pit. So I get why Jalen was leaking out or, not wanting to go back in there, because it's not really nature. It's trying to get out of the crowd, because he's stepping into 5 offensive linemen and 4 defensive guys at least coming. So now it's a 10-man scrum. So I got it. But once he did step in that pocket, that's what we always said about Mac Jones is his athleticism didn't matter, because in the pocket he was a maestro. He was a Justin Timberlake and a Michael Jackson. He was just taking little mini steps and keeping people and creating that space. And Jalen's really learned to do that. And, one of the things, like you mentioned earlier, go back to the backs leaking out of the backfield. There's quite a connection. That play to Roydell was that the 3rd touchdown, I believe, with the caught him out of the backfield, scrambled, looked like he was going to run, took it down the sideline, was getting great blocking to seal that sideline. So the whole play there. So those backs are having a pretty good time coming out of there, getting out, leaking out of that backfield and finding some open space. And they're trouble in that open space.
Yeah, you're starting to see some connectivity
with
Jalen in the backs and even maybe the tight ends. And again, play design has been really good too. Variety from Tommy Reese has been really good. Threatening the perimeter with the run game is either the backs or maybe Kendrick Law on some quick stuff. And then you do that, you fake that, then you open up the middle of the field for CJ Dupree to hit him down the seam. That's a play they didn't hit at Texas A&M. That was an interception against Texas A&M. And at Kentucky, about a month or so later, it goes for a big play. So, Tim, when you think about what's coming up now for Alabama, all due respect to UTC, a solid FCS team, but road trip to Auburn. You have said here on this program that of the games that were sort of left from Tennessee, LSU, you were maybe more concerned about Auburn, that trip to Auburn specifically.
I thought that would be the toughest, not just on the field, but the lead up to it. Because now, Auburn's going to be at an all-time high. It happens every 3 to 4 years. They get the new coach, and that they are like behind him. And Hugh Freeze has obviously did a much better job than last year. I mean, they've been competitive and won football games. So you got a very loud fan base. You got a very excited fan base. It's in the state. I think just off the field is going to be as much as getting mentally prepared and going down there and having to do that, especially you've already got the SEC West. I think this team knows it's it's a talented blue collar team. I think they know they got to fight every play. I don't think you have to tell them. I don't expect them to be hyper focused against Chattanooga. I think there's just a certain amount of letdown, but I think they'll go in and handle their business and then get to Auburn. Alabama's the more talented team than Auburn, obviously, but we got guys on our board that swear it's a graveyard. It's a hoodoo graveyard, voodoo down there. So I'm excited for the game to actually have a little people excited to see it.
Yeah, this team can do something that no other Nick Saban Alabama team has done too, and that is get a 4th straight win over the Auburn Tigers for Nick Saban. They hadn't won 4 straight in this series. So there is something out there. I don't know if they'll even be aware of that. But again, you talk about the issues Alabama's had at Auburn. We'll get more into this next week. But then you think about the success Alabama's had against Georgia under Nick Saban in Atlanta or Athens, the state of Georgia in general. You got any early thoughts, way too early thoughts on that SEC championship game?
I probably haven't. I think I've taken on the game by game mentality in a lot of ways. I'm excited that the last East-West
just trying
game,
to breathe right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a rough. I mean, I'll be honest. I've loved this team. I've loved this team. I've loved the ups and downs. I even in the South Florida was loved the fact the defense played so hard. I found positives in it. I love the attitude of this team. I love how hard they work, and they seem to get along great. But Georgia, I mean, I'm excited to play Georgia. I think everybody is. Georgia's a good team. Obviously, win all those games. Everybody, I was not. I talked to our buddy Rusty Mizell at the Georgia site and told him I didn't think there was a prayer Ole Miss could beat Georgia. The crowd was into it. They were, they felt some urgency, and they absolutely, after you get off Lane's 20 scripted plays, that's when it's coaching, because Lane's 20 plays are good. He's really good. Lane's up 7-0, I think, in every game he's ever played. Sark's the same way. So just those offensive guys, Heupel's that way. They can dial them up early. They're scripted. They're ready to go. But Georgia's obviously a really good team. Maybe not as good in the past defensively, but maybe better offensively to some degree.
More diverse, I think,
Yeah. Kind of. I mean,
they're not just phone booth football on offense right now. They've added some playmakers on the outside to go along with Ladd McConkey. So I think they're in some ways tougher to defend. I don't know if their run game is consistent.
It's not as much in the past.
I think Carson Beck, there's really none of a drop off for where Alabama's concerned anyway. Yeah. I thought Alabama against Stetson Bennett played great. I mean, you look at his 3 starts against Alabama, he went 1-2, and he needed every bit of that fourth quarter against a debilitated Alabama team in Indianapolis to get over the hump. So Beck is, I think, a legit thrower. What we don't know yet, because of Georgia's schedule, I think, is how well can he perform if he's consistently under pressure?
Yeah, that's always,
and that's what I think Alabama can do to him if Georgia can't run the football consistently.
I'll tell you one of the things you look at. If you look at 3 years ago, probably, and you would have tell me 3 years ago that Jalen Milroe and Carson Beck and even Jaden Daniels are going to be the 3 best quarterbacks in the SEC, I'd have had words with you. I mean, you did not see this coming. Carson Beck has been quiet, turned into a really good football player. Jaden Daniels, he's like night and day. I mean, he was always a good player, but he's a Heisman winner, in my opinion. I don't know if there's a better college football player this year at all. He's definitely the best. And Jalen Milroe, unbelievable. So you're seeing a lot of quarterback play and rise up in the SEC when a lot of people always said this wasn't much of a quarterback league, but you're kind of seeing maybe it is.
Yeah, it's a
guys that knows things.
I think it turned out to be a good year in the league. I don't think a lot of people saw Graham Mertz of Florida being as good as he has been.
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler has quietly had a really good year. He's on a bad team.
Yeah, he is.
KJ Jefferson at Arkansas. It's been a rough year, obviously, for the
spot.
Hogs, but Jackson Dart at Ole Miss.
Good player. Yeah.
There's good players, good quarterbacks. Cook at Missouri has had a great year.
Yeah. It was I've enjoyed the college football season because there's been so many. It's been so wide open in a lot of ways. I mean, I don't agree with the committee. I don't understand the committee. I mean, to me, I'm just a simple guy. The 4 best are the 4 best. I don't really care about a whole lot of other stuff. But I mean, to see the rankings and them justified, it's kind of frustrating to see it. I mean, it gives me great relief knowing this is going to be fixed, with 12 teams next year. I'll be honest, I just breezed through the fact this was actually happening. It was like I did that with the NIL. It's like, sure, whatever.
And then bam.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to happen. Then I look up and it's here. So I think I've got to adjust to that 12-team schedule as well, the playoffs. But I would be if this was 12 this year, I'd be super excited. I'd be super excited to see this 12.
And that makes it the perfect transition, though, into 12, because really, in most years, I think it's been a clear 4 that need to be in the playoff.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
maybe fair. 5, like last year, Alabama there at the end. You kind of wondered with TCU losing in the Big 12 championship game. Sure. It didn't happen because Alabama had 2 losses. But most years, it feels like 4 has been plenty, but it could be the case this year where 4 isn't enough, and then you get 12 next year and everything.
The segue is going to be good,
Yeah.
I just don't want to lose I love football, and I don't want to lose the non-conference games because it can hurt you. I was excited for Bama, Texas. Yeah. I was excited for FSU, LSU. I was excited for those games. I'd hate to lose all of those because, the conference is getting tricky and you want to, you got to wobble into the playoffs. You got to work your way in there. So,
Yeah, you do. And it is a grind already. And then you start throwing in conference championship games like
yeah,
the SEC game.
yeah.
It's a lot at the college level, no doubt about it. Well, Tim, on the college basketball front, I guess Nate Oates' team is just going to score 100 points every time out. They've done it in both of their games so far this season. Most recently, a 22-point win over the Sycamores of Indiana State last Friday night at Coleman Coliseum. Going to welcome in a South Alabama team tonight that dropped its opener to an NAIA program in Crosstown, Mobile, but went on the road and actually won at Nate Oates' previous employer, the University of Buffalo. So college basketball, Tim, pretty small world, as you know firsthand. But what are your
Absolutely.
thoughts on this team through 2 games and looking ahead as the stakes start to ramp up in the non-con in the next week or so?
I mean, you look at the transfer guys. I mean, Estrada, Nelson, they're as good as you'd hope they'd be. Estrada's way better than I thought. I thought he was going to be good, but this guy's lights out. He's getting, he's contributing assists and rebounds. He's defensively getting steals. I mean, he's just an active guy. Him and Sears are very much a really good duo in the back. I mean, I know now I've seen the questions about their defense. I trust the Nate Oates team to play defense at the end of the day. But when you're playing such a deep roster, you're not going to always get your best defense. Also, you've got young guys. Even the portal guys are coming to a different level of basketball. You got young guys contributing. So I still think they're kind of working in there. And it's a good thing. They've got some, they got some games they can win early on and work on some things. You said South Alabama, Mercer's coming up. But after that, I mean, you start getting into the Power Fives pretty quickly. You got Ohio State, Clemson, and then you've got that run with Purdue, Creighton, and Arizona. And that's gonna be a little 3-man. That's gonna be a little 3-game top 10 run you got coming up. So you're gonna be able to tell a lot about your team then. And the thing with basketball, like the people that don't really watch basketball, you're playing for the end. You're not playing for the beginning. So you're trying to figure out every step. You're trying to figure out, just like the lost the 2 preseason games or the scrimmages or whatever. You're playing from that to get to this part of the season. Then you want to see what you've got in the NCAA tournament setting. And really, you're playing 3 top 10 teams. You're in the final 8. That's a final 8 tournament. So, you're playing those 3 in a row, basically. And then you want to get to the SEC tournament, the NCAA. You don't want to be on your hottest streak. And we kind of saw this with Bama before a couple of years ago when their best team was in December. You want to see your best team in March. You want to see your best team at that point. So a lot of working parts, and I enjoy watching the process, but it might be frustrating at times. But we said that last year where we had some early question marks, and then they just took off and put on a run. But I do think this team will defend better, and I do think they can score. I think they're a problem from that aspect.
Yeah, I guess you could say, at least right now, Estrada, Nelson, and Sears would constitute a big 3 if this team
Yeah,
had one, especially on the offensive end.
yeah,
And they performed that way against Indiana State last time out. So, absolutely, though, defensively, that's where Nate's going to continue to harp. I think, as he has said, more than anything, it probably has to do with newcomers or younger players and coming at understanding that it's not high school anymore where you could go out and score 30 and rest on the defensive end. That's not going to work for Nate Oates in terms of his rotation and his minutes. And you also made a good point too about how that stretch, especially like Creighton, Purdue, Arizona, that almost does have a tournament feel to it from game to
absolutely.
game. And not only because of the quality of the opposition, but because a couple of those games are on neutral site for us too, which
Yeah.
is what you're going to encounter in March with the Purdue game in Toronto, and Arizona is going to be in Phoenix. That's going to be a home game. Arizona coming off too an impressive road win at Duke.
Was excellent. Yeah, great win. Yeah, great win for them. So I like the fact it's kind of like, easy games, mid-level games, really tough games. And then you go back to a couple games before you get into the SEC that you should win, trying to give the Phillies a chance to get their feet under them, get them broke in, get them lathered up, get them in that SEC and ready to play. But I'm excited. I love the way Nate Oates recruits. I love the way energy they bring, and I love the way they put it together. But but basketball team very well can mirror this football team. I mean, there was a lot of we're going to lose 4 or 5 games early in the year after South Florida. There was a lot of that. Hey, and I'm not saying it was unfounded after the South Florida game. You had to have concerns, but there was a lot. But to see it go from there, to one loss with 2 games left in the season, SEC West, and I think you can see that with the, possibly with the basketball team as they gel together, because there is, like you said, there's a progression. If you look at a guy, Malik Benson's a guy that early on didn't block very well. He's blocking better, so he's seeing more time. He's seeing more catches. There's adjustment from junior college, from the transfer portal, and certainly from high school. I mean, you're going from blocking me and you coming off the edge to blocking, James Pierce. Caden Proctor went from blocking me and you on a blitz. Travis, bandit. And then all of a sudden we've got
Teddy McGillicuddy last year on the high school level.
And now he's got James Pierce coming off the edge at 6'4", 245, running a legit 4.6. So there's an adjustment period, but when you got talent, that talent's usually going to show up. But experience, I said this about Jalen Milroe early, caught some flack, but there's nothing more important than experience for a quarterback. There's nothing more. What's that cliche? You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. Well, that's a quarterback. When you go from high school football to college, you didn't know. Well, now you know.
Yeah, I think something could help Alabama also from a pass pro perspective coming up, and understanding Auburn and Georgia both have talented players on defense. But with both those defenses, at least I haven't seen a true game wrecker type on the edge. Good players and certainly capable of giving Alabama problems. But I'm talking about guys that can just wreck the game in terms of a pass rush. So, hey, Tim, also wanted to ask you about, as we shift back to football real quick, this college football coaching carousel, man. Didn't take long to get going. I know the transfer portal sort of plays into this, and now you got guys that are able to make the jump into the portal. The window opening up in the not too distant future, I guess, coinciding almost with the early signing date. A lot to take into consideration now with Jimbo Fisher out at Texas A&M, with Zach Arnett out at Mississippi State. And again, it just has the feel of we're just getting started here.
Yeah, that scares me. I had my old man moment on Sunday night. I lit a cigar, went on the back porch and was like, I remember when we had peace until the Sunday after the SEC championship game, right? Then heads started rolling. Coaches were fired. All your coach buddies are calling you, asking what you're hearing. The jockeying began. We're not even at Thanksgiving. We barely missed Halloween, and we got 2 SEC coaches down. Man down. We got 2 down.
And vultures over another one in Fayetteville.
Yes,
at least.
Yeah. That's that sucks. I'll be honest. That sucks because Sam Pittman was a great story, right? He was a great story. He's like 6th, 7th, 8th choice, whatever you come by. Everybody loves the guy and had some success. And then to see, I was shocked by this. I was shocked by he beat Florida. Then I was shocked he got blown out at home against Arkansas. But I was shocked he couldn't even move the ball the week before the Florida game. So, obviously, I think there's a chance something's coming, which is a shame. But hey, you're getting 3, 4, 5 years, behind your success. And obviously the Aggies opening up, not only are they opening, but the Aggies is massive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's massive. That's along the lines of, that's about as big a name as you're going to get. That's going to probably leave this year. And then you throw in the $76 million buyout. Even Zach Arnett had a $4.5 million buyout.
Yeah, so which is really low. That's almost nothing these days, but it's still big money.
Yeah, that's still. He got 11 games.
Yeah.
Somebody try me for that. But you got Jimbo's going to rock the world. It's curious what everything's happening. You're already getting Mike Norvell. You're already getting Dan Lanning saying no to offers they probably don't have yet. And I'm curious to see what they do as well. It's
a lot of these guys though, and saying no, are getting their money up one way or the other. They're getting it up where they're at, or they're going to get it somewhere else.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what Texas A&M does. But again, you had You knew this was coming. Remember, we talked about this. When the boosters go all in on the NIL, which they did, he can be mad at Nick Saban or whoever he wants. They had a great, unbelievable class, and a lot of it was NIL aided.
Yep.
And but when you give boosters give money, when you say, "Hey Tim, I need 100,000 to sign Travis Reier," well, in year 2, I'm going, "Why is Travis Reier not playing? I paid 100,000 for this joker. Get him." You start
Right.
you start getting into daddy ball some version. So ain't nothing going to make a rich man matter giving money and not seeing that return. So
And the thing you got to understand too, if they've got that money to give to the collective to help you recruit, they got that money to buy you out too.
oh yeah, I mean this price. I mean, I think I saw somebody say he's going to be $150 million to
To
fire
go,
him and hire a new
yeah.
coach. I'm not even sure that's accurate because that's only given $75 million for the next coach. They're going
Yeah.
to be adding buyouts. They're going to have to.
If they hire Elko, maybe they can keep it around there.
Yeah, but
For
I looked
Duke,
up
bring
Dan
him back.
Lanning's got a $20 million buyout, and
Yeah, I
also
don't.
with Lanning, and I don't know Dan Lanning. I know his reputation. I'm a fan, but why would I leave? I mean, there's a lot of smoke about Lincoln Riley leaving for the NFL. Why would I leave Phil Knight, Oregon, chance to dominate a league? Other than I want to be super competitive, and he'd have to go against Saban and Kirby, and
About to go in the Big Ten though.
yeah.
Like I'll make it a little different, but yeah, he's got his own deal
Speaking of
out
coaching
there.
carousels, we got Jim Harbaugh in the Big Ten over there hiding. I
Yeah.
kept watching. I watched that Michigan game off and on. I just was waiting for one of the assistant coaches to grab his phone, knowing Jim's probably calling it.
They had the Bluetooth
Yeah,
on. You
yeah,
can
that was
believe
just.
that. They had the AirPods in, and were probably.
I mean, crazy year.
Yeah.
Back to the. We haven't really talked about this. What is your Heisman thoughts? You have Heisman thoughts yet?
Well, I'm with you. I mean, it's Jaden Daniels for
I mean,
me.
I don't want
You
to
know.
discredit Bo Nix, who I think's been fantastic
Yeah,
too,
but dude is like 37 years old, and I know Daniels has been around too, but
but James,
I'm probably skewed by I've already seen Bo Nix in the
yeah,
SEC, so I know what he would
he's
still
a
probably be doing in the SEC. Although it blows my mind when I see some of these first round mocks and I see Bo Nix as a first round quarterback. I guess I need to go back. I talk about revisiting Alabama from earlier in the season. Maybe the committee needs to.
and I
Maybe
saw.
I need to do that with Bo Nix. I did watch some of the game against SC, and to me, it was good Bo Nix, but top 5 pick in the NFL
And I
draft.
think part of that's going to go. Well, first of all, you can't. I saw a mock draft Jake Fromm's last year where he was the number 1 pick,
I know,
the
and
number
same
1
type of
overall
thing.
pick. Yeah,
Where
the
in
number.
what world is Bo Nix a top 5 pick? Give me Spencer Rattler as a pro
Well, I think
over
what you're.
Bo Nix right now.
I think you're going old school NFL draft where Brett
Well,
Favre would go second. He didn't go second, but a guy like that would go second based on potential. Now everything's just moved up. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I
I
didn't
don't.
see Anthony Richardson go in top 5. I knew how talented he was. I didn't think he had
But
the tape.
knew he was just a unicorn type,
Yeah. See, that's to me with Daniels is like
talent.
I have one of my oldest friends I've known since elementary school who's an LSU fan, and he was saying, "I'm loving this LSU offense." And I'm like, it's not
You
that
loving Jaden Daniels?
Brian Kelly didn't call a run to the left for 85 yards.
That ain't Brian Kelly's offense at all.
That kid is that. No offense to Brian Kelly, that kid is just, and then
Yeah.
followed it up with a 52-yard banger.
See, I've seen Jaden Daniels do it in the Pac-12 when he was at Arizona State, and Arizona State
I never saw him this good.
well, the game against Oregon a few years back
I remember that one.
in Tempe
That was a good game.
against Justin Herbert, and they knocked off the Ducks. I've seen him do it, but I've seen him do it in the SEC now for 2 years.
So where does Milroe fall in the Heisman discussion?
Couple of big stages coming up. And these voters, the good thing for Jaylen is most, if not all of these voters now do not submit their vote until after the conference championship game. So I don't think he can get to the top, but
He's
a
a
lot of
top 10
people,
guy. He's a top.
oh, I
Yeah,
think he is.
yeah,
But
for
a
sure.
lot of people in 2012 didn't see Johnny Manziel winning the
That's true.
Heisman about a week or two in November. And then A&M went to Tuscaloosa and he did his thing. And then a month later, he's picking up the trophy. So maybe there is enough time for Jalen Milroe to
I
get
don't
there.
think he
Maybe
can
the
get.
stages that are left are big enough.
I don't think he can get to New York. I think you're going to have a heavy West Coast Bo Nix, and he's been good. I want you to give a deeper dive when you get a chance. He's
I
been
know
good.
he's been good, but top 5 in the
Well, I don't know about
draft?
the draft. I'm talking the Heisman. You might be.
Yeah,
I agree with the draft, but we're talking.
that's
Uh,
fine. Yeah,
Trubisky went number 2 over,
I
Deshaun
know.
Watson, and I mean, you go through the history.
I know Blake Bortles to the Jags, Blaine
Yes,
Gabbert, you
I'm not
know.
even sure Josh Allen should have went 6th in hindsight.
And by
I'm
the way, I'm sorry for that Jalen Milroe comp I made with Josh Allen a couple weeks
yes,
ago.
several.
I shorted Jalen on
Yeah,
that.
that's the worst. That's the most egregious insult he's had all year. Surprisingly enough, that's the worst.
Oh
That's
gosh,
the
I'll never
worst.
do it again, Jalen.
But to
Oof.
me, Jalen is really doing a lot of things for next year because I mean we're going to get a lot of questions, but this kind of performance, I think he's a top 10 Heisman candidate. I think he can move up in the top 5 or 6 range with a couple more big games. Unfortunately, his 3-3 came at 11 a.m. against Kentucky, on a
Yeah.
kind of quiet Saturday. But then again, you're in the top five or 10, and coming back, you know where you're going to start the year. And it's important to have those eyes on you heading into that season.
I struggle to assign legitimacy to Oregon in general. That's my issue.
I
It's
don't
not
know
just a Bo
Washington.
Nix thing because the last time I really, really, really thought that maybe that program could compete consistently with the likes of the SEC, I saw Georgia put a 60 bomb on them
Mhm.
in Atlanta. And I was like, okay. And that was with Bo Nix. And I know that was
Oh,
very
yeah, the
early in his stay there. But I
Oregon
was like,
has
I'm good on Oregon for a long time now.
Oregon has Lucy'd us. You know how Lucy, that Charlie Brown
Yeah.
episode where they put that football down and you think you're
And
going to
it's
kick
helped
it?
Alabama in the past that they've done it, you
Yeah,
know?
I'm not even sure how good Washington is.
I think they're losing Saturday. They're losing Saturday at Oregon State. And I think Jonathan Smith, the coach at Oregon State, is a guy that doesn't get talked about enough when these A&Ms and these
Hey,
jobs come
another
open.
coach. Yeah, I agree with you. Another one's doing a great job is Arizona's coach. We talked about this earlier in the year.
Jed Fish, yeah.
Dude, that guy's doing a really good job. You're seeing that. Elko's another one. I mean, there's a
Hmm.
lot of good college football coaches. I mean, it's curious to see who's going to get pulled to the NFL. Again, Lincoln Riley, I've heard that room. I mean, I've heard it every year, but this year it's like legitimate legs, like ready to go to the NFL. And if he's ever going to make that leap, isn't this a pretty good year to do it?
I would
You
think so.
you got Caleb Williams,
Yeah.
possible #1 pick in the draft, Heisman winner, and you lose him. Can you really replicate that? You know what I mean? So
Yeah, for sure. Hey, let's get into the mailbag, Tim, as we move along here and check in with our trusty subscribers to BamaOnline.com right there on the round table with us. Our guy Tuscaloosa, he went off, and we appreciate it, though. He's
yeah,
always a lot of
he's
fun.
a little needy, but we love him.
Tuscaloosa 10 times. I'm going to post in the show thread. We love it. He gets things going with a fire pit pro tip because I did ask the question in the original post here in the thread. Are you, Tim Watts, a fireplace slash fire pit person? Are you a fan of the fireplace and or the fire pit, especially this time of year?
I don't know. I'm an odd guy. I'll smoke a cigar, but the fireplace smoke bothers me.
Okay. All right. I
So I
am.
do.
Go
I'm
ahead.
okay with the fire pit as long as my wife and son set it up, do everything, and I'll sit by it. I
I am
really don't get off anything else on it.
I'm a fire pit fan. I've got one of those solo stoves out on the back porch, and you might
Nice.
like those because they burn cleaner. They really limit the smoke. You might actually like those. But Tuscaloosa says fire pit pro tip: cheap whiskey mixed with diet orange drink. You're welcome. That
How's
sounds
that a
great.
fire tip pro tip? That sounds like a definite. What did he
It's a
say?
fire pit tip: cheap whiskey mixed with diet orange drink. Oy.
Oh, so you're drinking it around the fire pit.
Yeah,
It's not
and
actually
I don't mind a cocktail
cheap
or some
whiskey.
wine.
Why would the cheap
I
whiskey and
need
the
a little gentleman jack and ginger, maybe.
I'm not burning the sun kissed with
All
cheap
right.
whiskey.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
Diet
saying.
orange drink. There
My
you go.
guy's obviously got a girl because he's talking about some diet orange drink.
Well,
I'm
and there's a
trustful.
lot of folks out there that what do you need the diet orange drink for? Save the Coke for the kids. Drink the whiskey on ice,
Actually, I'm more likely to drink the orange drink than the whiskey. But
Tuscaloosa also wants to know, Tim Watts, is this the greatest Alabama basketball team of all time? 2-0, of course. Time to go ahead and designate it as such, right?
I've got Final Four tickets. That's all I'm going to
Ready
say.
to go.
I'm
Ready to go.
feeling it. I'm feeling it.
Tuscaloosa, thoughts on LSU's women getting blown out in their first game of the season? That was Colorado. Hey, Tuscaloosa, that just goes to show you all the parity that we hear isn't a part of the women's game. Seeing more and more of it, in women's college basketball.
I don't follow women's sports at all, but I did find it shocking that LSU got blown out, and there was another Connecticut lost.
Connecticut lost on the road at NC State. So again, parity in the women's game, and of course, Tuscaloosa.
Why do people say drop the goal? He's not the only one to say that.
They think it would make the game more viewer friendly. I don't know, but if they lower the goal, then people like Tuscaloosa would be able to play. So they want to keep.
My point is, if I grow up from 0 to 18 to 21, or 0 to 18, well, I guess the goals would have to be lowered at every level.
Well, they do that like in the para ball, in the youth ball. They start.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, but they're also 4. My kids played that.
Yeah. It's still hard to get it up there.
Yeah, they need to lower that to 6.
Tuscaloosa, are we anticipating Ty Simpson transferring at the end of the season? He's got some serious talent. Does he have the patience to wait for a turn? Does he have to have patience in this era of college football, Tim? I mean, if I can go somewhere else in a top 25 program and perhaps walk in and start, why do I need to be patient, right?
Yeah. I mean,
it's not Alabama. I get that part. But I'm just kind of thinking. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I haven't heard anything definite that he is, but I think that's a possibility like we discussed earlier. I mean, you got Jalen coming back. You got Julian Sayin coming in. You know what I mean? You got 2 freshmen that we don't even talk about. I'm not sure how you've went weeks without mentioning. That's how good Jalen Milroe is. You haven't even mentioned Dylan in weeks. Dylan Lonergan, he's probably upset with you. You're like supposed to be Dylan.
It's dealing.
We still think he's going to have a bright future here. So I can see the appeal of going and having a second chance and all that. But I mean, with quarterbacks, you come in, you battle, you win, you start. You don't win
2
the
years
job.
in. Yeah, it's not a 1-year thing that Ty Simpson.
I mean, we've seen crazy situations. The craziest was Jalen Hurts staying.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen these situations. Alabama has that, but I would expect Ty is least entertaining those thoughts. And if I had to bet, I would think that probably he does end up looking in the portal.
Don't get the franchise tag players in college football, at least not yet. Anyway,
not yet. It's coming.
Tuscaloosa, I read that Carson Beck wasn't contacted by a single Ole Miss defender the entire game last Saturday night. Is UGA's OL that good? Beck seems to be quietly working himself into first-round draft conversations. I think Beck is really good, and I think especially like most quarterbacks, when he can stand in there and deliver without the threat of a consistent pass rush. So I think Georgia got Amarius Mims back, one of its tackles, and a legit first-round talent in his own right. So that was helpful. Brock Bowers was back for Ole Miss coming off that ankle injury. So, yeah, Tim, I don't think this is going to be a sort of patchwork Georgia offense from an injury perspective by the time it sees Alabama in a couple weeks.
No, I think that was the whole get Brock ready and having, again, kudos to any of these guys getting that surgery and playing in a few weeks and, trying to get that rust off and get that flexibility. And also you got to trust that injury. So obviously playing for the long haul. Ole Miss defensive line is not as good as Alabama's, obviously. Their defense isn't as good. Georgia ran the ball much better than I think they anticipated running. I was talking to some of the Georgia guys before the game, and they said they've struggled running the ball, but they had a lot of consistency. And like any team, Bama and Georgia, any good team, if you're able to run the ball, you're opening up a world for your quarterbacks, especially when you got guys like tight ends. Georgia has good tight ends. Brock Bowers, maybe one of the best we've ever seen. Bama has good tight ends. CJ Dupree, when he gets the ball, he's really in trouble. Amari Knoblack's good. So you're opening up a world for them on top of your wide receiver. So Alabama's defense is probably always going to start with limit the run. But I will say Beck's not – I mean, when you faced LSU, you faced the most problematic offense you're going to see anywhere in the country this year.
Yeah.
That is by far the most difficult. LSU can't say it enough. They had good tackles. They had a phenom quarterback, and Alabama's lost to that quarterback before. In fact, they lost to him last year. But you've seen that Johnny Manziel, Deshaun Watson performance, and they had great wide receivers. So that was a very complete offense for LSU. So once you've seen that, you're not going to have to spy Carson Beck, for instance. You're just playing your base. You're just playing your base defense. So, but yeah, Georgia's a good football team with a good offensive line.
They are. And again, they've added some Ra Thomas from Mississippi State, Dom Lovett from Missouri to that wide receiver core. Really good wide receiver screen to the outside, quick game team too. So that helps in terms of keeping Beck clean. And do some things with those guys too. And like the reverse game, you'll see Lad McConkey about once a game on one of those reverses. So they do some different things to help Beck out. Bon Jovi de Jesus checking in here, Tim. He says, I asked the question earlier this year and you answered third or fourth round, but what do you think Milroe's draft ceiling is now?
I mean, it's obviously a second day pick, I would think, is on the table. For me, it's hard to evaluate Milroe without really sitting down and going through NFL wise, I should say. I think first round's a possibility if he continues to improve in every facet that he's improved. I mean, the one thing about it is with the NFL, they like the guys that can run a little bit, but their shelf life is minimum. I mean, these guys that come in RG3 and
well, look at Anthony Richardson this year.
Murray.
How many games did Anthony Richardson play this year?
Yeah, and it's the same for the kid drafted by the 49ers, Trey. So you get those guys that run. So they're not counting so much on his running ability. But I will say Jalen kind of runs like the NFL runs, the scramble, the pull it and run. It's not really designated sweep right or power right or any of that stuff. So I think first round's on the table, but I really think it's still, it's a work in progress. It's higher than it was to start the year when I went from undrafted to a third or fourth round pick, possible second day pick. I think he's got first round potential, and potential is the key word there. But the way the guy works, his positive attitude's contagious. I can't get over the guy. I mean, has anybody ever been happier to do a post-game interview? I mean, that guy's roll tides. I saw a whole little thing on Twitter where he's just doing his roll tides. That guy loves saying some roll tides. So positive attitude, hard worker. And one thing that also helped, it's going to come down to how does he throw it? Because, man, his interviews are going to be off the chart. And there's no way Nick Saban's not going to, sing this guy's praises. So first round's a possibility down the road.
Yeah, intangibly, I think he'll be fine too. As you outlined, earlier in the season, it was still could be Anthony Richardson like potential, could be Kellen Mond type potential. So he's filled in some blanks, no doubt about it, especially in this last month, and helped himself immensely, even if it's not this year, which I wouldn't think it is. But perhaps 2025.
His star's on the rise. I think that's the biggest.
He's at least on the NFL's radar now.
Yeah.
I don't even think he was on the radar.
I'll know more after the season when I talk to people in the NFL, but right now they probably haven't really had a great look at him. This isn't the guy that had film. Usually the year before dictates the year after. That's when they get their first look, then they start to monitor. So with Jalen not really having any film, not much film last year, I think this will be the year they'll be able to really break him down and get into him. But he's doing a lot of things right.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of teams don't even look at guys. I mean, they know about guys, but they don't, as you said, start that process until a guy's draft eligible. Now, and Jalen is. So maybe that is something that happens more in earnest after this season. Tuscaloosa, has there been a more important shakeup in recent memory than the what's that? Then the addition and emergence of Jaden Roberts on the Alabama offensive line. It's been seismic, that shakeup and what it's meant for that group, Tim.
Yeah, I agree. The attitude, like you said, he loves to work. I mean, you need guys like that to be contagious. We talked about that earlier in the year when Burton was kind of on the line with his energy, but a lot of people feed off that. You don't want him to cross that line. But, then again, some guys just play that way. Dallas plays that way. Dallas is an intense, competitive guy. who wants to get to the quarterback so bad that sometimes that extra half step, is going to cost him 15 yards. I've never thought he was a dirty player. I just think he's a very physical, competitive player that are scattered all over the National Football. I tell you this, National Football League, don't look at Dallas's hits and go, we don't want this guy. We don't want this.
Hey,
We don't want
calm
this guy.
down, guy.
We don't want this guy on our team. Look how hard he hit the quarterback. That's not a discussion unless it's after the play on the sideline and a close, a forehead, forearm to the forehead. So, yeah, I think Ferguson brings that energy. I got a feeling in the offensive line huddle, if you didn't do your job, he might be a little vocal about it, So
He should be getting to a level where he's comfortable in that kind of role. Sometimes a guy that replaces a guy or two maybe isn't going to give you that, but he does it through his play. I mean, when they watch tape, they have to see it. And we talk about Jalen and how he's become more proficient in the pocket. Well, it helps when you firm up the interior of the pocket and your quarterback feels like there is some space to step up into. And Nick Saban talked about it earlier in the season that they weren't firm enough on the interior in solidifying that pocket and that nose. Well, with Jaden Roberts in there, it hadn't just been the run game where physicality has shown up. This guy is physical in pass protection as well, and can anchor and really, really provide that room with that Jaylen Milroe needs to kind of step up in there, no doubt about it. Bapt Man here in the roundtable mailbag wants to know, have you seen a more noticeable improvement in an Alabama team from week 3 to week 10 in recent memory? I can't remember one. Certainly the past two teams did not. Totally impressed with players and coaching. What about that, Tim?
I think the last couple of teams, probably you knew more about them going in. So there wasn't maybe as much room for improvement. I mean, you had Bryce who hit a lot of that. You had Will. You had so many good guys that could that were already proven on what they could do and what we knew they could do. This team again had a lot of uncertainty. You had a true freshman left tackle. You had a first time starting quarterback. You had defensive guys that had to be replaced. You had a new offense coordinator, new defensive coordinator. You had a lot happening. So no, I can't. I think there was more uncertainty. There's as much uncertainty about this team as I can remember in recent memory. And
Yeah,
I do think they've checked off a lot of those boxes of the questions we've had.
I think you're right because you said it. It wasn't just one position where you had questions about this team. There were multiple positions on both sides of the ball where you had concerns for this team. So, at least in the Sabin era, it would be that team that's made the most improvement from week 3 to week 10, in my opinion, because of the team wide needs that it had to deal with. Now, if we're talking from one season to the next, certainly 2007 to 2008, what we saw from Alabama at the end of Saban's first season to what we saw from Alabama against Clemson in that 2008 season opener was a good bit different. I guess you could say even in the bowl win over Colorado to end the 2007 season, you were starting to see it, but it was really evident against Clemson going from one season to the next, I guess.
This team's been great. Yeah, they did a lot of things, answered a lot of questions, a lot of mix, just a lot going on with this team. You replaced two coordinators, and they basically flip flop them. You got a young coordinator, you got an older coordinator, you got a older experienced offensive coordinator, and you got a young guy coming in. So there's a lot of flip flop, and these, kudos to this team to adjusting to it, and Sabin, and I can tell you, Sabin from his attitude doesn't think any team's ever improved as much. I don't think it's anything to do with being soft. I think he enjoys this team.
Yeah, I don't care what level you coach. There's nothing more rewarding. I've coached kids and high school level stuff and whatever, but there is the biggest reward in that profession, I would think, would be seeing this type of improvement throughout the course of a season, not just in terms of team, but individuals that have emerged and stepped forward and moved ahead in terms of their play, like a Jaden Roberts, like Jalen Milroe. You go to the defensive side of the ball, Terrion Arnold, the big step he's taken on
Tim
that side.
Keenan. Tim
Keenan,
Look at these coaches
James Burnett, the punter. I mean, pick
Yeah.
a spot on this team, and it's been the case, right?
So, yeah, if you're a coach, if you're Wolf, for instance, you're excited to see Proctor's growth. You're excited to see Ferguson step in. If you're Freddie Roach, you're thrilled to see Tim Keenan, who really had no impact for the last couple of years. And, again, DB coach T. Rob's happy to see Terry and Arnold really step up. Now, that guy's starting to get first-round mentions. He's got a lot of things you like about him. He's long.
I think he's gone, Tim. As long as he doesn't get hurt, I can't envision a
he's going to have
scenario where he's back.
opportunities to be gone because he's long, he's athletic. His
Plays
interception,
two spots.
his
Plays corner,
interception against Kentucky was fantastic. Yeah. The ball skills, the torque, turn your body. So when you see those guys, like you said, burn up. Yeah, the special teams coach is going to get excited. Tommy Reese about Jalen. Those guys get excited too, just like we were in seeing it.
No doubt. Maybe NIL helps Alabama.
Well, it does, especially because if you're in that 3, 4, 5th round range, maybe having that NIL money and that insurance for injury helps you want to come back and try to increase your stock because you're not risking as much.
I think Arnold's 2nd round already at this point.
I haven't did anything until this college season's over when I'll start digging, but his stock's going to be high as long as he's athletic.
Mm-hmm.
He's a basketball guy. He has great ball skills. Another thing is that speech about Nick Saban made him some money.
Yeah, and intangibles, he's through the roof.
Like, I came here to be coached. I don't care how he said it. I care what he said.
Right.
That's a grown man's thinking.
Yeah.
I know grown men that would have a fit. Maybe he's going straight to HR with that yelling on the sideline. HR, unanimous report.
Major Wood 482 here, one of our favorites. Major Wood. Way too early transfer portal talk. Who we going after? Who we need? Rumblings on any A&M guys. Major Wood's ready to get out there and figure it out. I guess you got to kind of figure out too, right, Tim? Your own roster.
Yeah, that's the first thing. Like, do you lose your, it's not hypothetical. You're not going to lose, but if you lose your left tackle, your right tackle, if you're losing your quarterback, your tight end, your, defensive lineman, that's kind of what you're replacing is what you're losing. So a lot of this will come down to this NFL feedback and decisions on guys going pro before they really start to figure that out because they got to lock their own guys up. That's the first thing. I mean, we've seen starters leave. We've seen starters leave programs all over the place right now. So you lock up your guys. And, when it comes to the Aggies, that was my question. Everybody kept asking about the recruits. And I'm like, really, the question is the players, not so much the recruits. I mean, that's kind of low-hanging fruit, right? But players, who wants to be there? We've already seen, a good portion of their fantastic class leave. How many more could possibly leave? But, it's kind of a mixed bag with the Aggies because they had the NIL to get them. So they probably have the NIL to keep them. But also, do they want to go through a new coaching staff? Do they want to go somewhere there last year and compete? Because Texas A&M had football players.
And a lot of those guys are going to be going into their 3rd year where they're thinking they're 3 and outs.
Yeah.
So is it worth it to move when you already got the NIL money where you're at and you're thinking you're jumping to the NFL in a year anyway? I guess.
So you can kind of work that in and you can kind of say, or, and also what comes into play is your last year of college for some of these guys is going to be, can I win a national championship? Can I experience the college football playoffs? And I mean, you've seen that with guys that love their school. You see a lot of them at Alabama right now on the basketball team and even on the football team where, can I compete? Can I get on that national stage? And it's not just about NFL. NFL is going to find you if you're in Alaska in an igloo throwing to your sister. They're going to find you if you're good enough. But it is about experience in that you can't tell me that the experience at Alabama, Georgia, Florida, or whatever, when the programs are good, LSU, Auburn, isn't just like the next level of what you are with any kind of competitor. You want to be involved in that. There's excitement. You see the excitement with the college football playoffs, the coaches, everybody's having a good time. So I think that factors in too. So a lot of to be determined, in my opinion.
Yes, some TBDs for sure. Tide Steel, as we wrap up the roundtable mailbag on the latest edition of T Watts and TR. He's got a couple of these that we just went over with on the transfer portal talk. So we'll go with this one from Tide Steel. Should we expect a Sabin tin horn speech this week? Well, it is FCS week, and it was Georgia Southern at the time, an FCS team that ran for over 300 yards against the Crimson Tide back in 2011. I think fans have gotten to the point, even the media too, where they'd relish that because it really hasn't been Saban's MO with this team anyway. It's been a team that's probably needed more attaboys than kicks to the butt. But with where they're at now, maybe we get a Saban 10 horn this week. I doubt it, but maybe.
Yeah, I think it just depends how they practice, the focus. I mean, I think this team, you didn't, again, the whole the rat trap, thing this week to kind of keep their attention on the fact it could be a trap game. I think that's kind of how he chose. You're right. This isn't really a team. Like Jonathan Allen was that guy. You look at some of these guys, you could scream and yell. They only heard the method. You got to treat everybody a little bit different. Every team is going to have a personality. I think last year's team was a little bit yell at us less, talk to us more. And I think this team is similar. But I don't expect a lot of brouhaha for Chattanooga. I mean, for me, my speech is you starters do your job because there's a lot of guys that want to play this week. Do your job. You know what I mean? Do your friggin' job. Go out here, handle your business, and then stand on the sideline and cheer on these young guys and these seniors who haven't had would be their last chance to ever play. That would be my message. Do your job for everybody else, not just for yourself. And I think this team's probably going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. Senior day as well, a big part of this.
And for some of the juniors, it's senior day. This is their last. This is it. This is their last. A lot of people. This is a lot of players' last game in Tuscaloosa. Brian Denny's a big reason they came. You know what I mean? There's going to be some sentimental moments this weekend.
Speaking of sentimentality, as we get out of here, Tim, are you knee deep into the holiday season movies at this point, or the shows, or where are you at on all
We're
that?
starting. My daughter started Christmas movies on Sunday, so we did watch. It's kind of a Christmas movie. It's Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. It's listed when it's got Robert Downey Jr. If you haven't seen it, it's a pretty good movie. It's got Robert Downey Jr. Val Kilmer's playing a gay guy, hilarious gay guy. It's got a lot of dude moments in it. Hot girl from Mission Impossible. So we started that, but I think it really begins next week in earnest. When Thanksgiving week gets here, the kids are out 3 or 4 days, counting the weekend, 5 days. And that's when we kind of will start digging in. We go deep. We go deep with the holidays. We got some we got to watch, and then some we're trying to find and add. And this week will be planes, trains, and automobiles, right?
I mean, that's the kind of go-to Thanksgiving flick, right? I mean, that's
yeah.
the one.
Oh yeah. I don't think there's just not many. I'll tell you a low key one no one talks about is Sin of a Woman with Al Pacino.
Yeah.
That's a very holiday movie. And I mean, it's a Pacino's an acquired taste in that movie, but it's got a lot of great moments, good acting, young actors, and Pacino.
It's like though Pacino got into character method acting mode, and he never got out of that role. Because whenever it seems like I see Al Pacino now when he talks or anything else, he's still in that role.
Yeah, he
yelling and screaming.
I saw he was like in the middle of a custody battle, divorce with a very young girl. So good for Al. He stayed in the game.
Wasn't he married at one point to gosh, her name? She
was
the mom, Beverly D'Angelo.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. I know they had twins, right? I don't know if they married or not, but they had kids together.
Is there anything out right now at the theaters that'll draw you out of Casa de Watts to go to the theater? There's a Paul Giamatti flick out. What's the name of that movie that's getting some good reviews? I'm a Paul Giamatti fan. It might drag me out to go see it.
It won't right now. We're going to New Orleans.
The Holdovers. That's out. That's what I want to see.
No. If I go out of the house right now, we're going to New Orleans this weekend to see a Pelicans game and do a pre-Thanksgiving.
Maybe get a turducken down there.
Yeah, we'll go watch Pelicans and eat Cajun, and then we'll go into full-on Thanksgiving mode holidays. But I haven't been to a movie in a while.
I've gotten into YouTube mode, man, not just because of Bama Online's YouTube page, which is enough, in and of itself. But I've gotten into these like YouTube reviews of New Haven pizza, because you've probably been to Sally's and Pepe's and those places, and Philly cheesesteaks.
Yeah.
And gone down this YouTube rabbit hole on these different things, man. I've watched more YouTube than even YouTube TV of late.
Yeah, the internet has made me full of worthless information that randomly impresses people, but Google started it. When I found Google, it hit the fan. And then when I found Wikipedia, we went deeper. And then YouTube came along, and it's like, shoot, I got a chemistry degree. What do you need to know? Give me 5 minutes. But I've been in that rabbit hole, and there's some weird ones. Like I've been in a rabbit hole and realized after, like, shoot, I hope nobody sees my search engine. Like.
There's like a chef over in England named Marco Pierre White, I think it is. I didn't even know the guy was. I stumbled across one of his videos. Next thing I know, I'm like 3 hours in watching him make bolognese and things. You kill a lot of time.
Yeah, there's a lot of talented guys on YouTube, a lot of talented people on YouTube. I mean, they do a good job. I like there's a couple black dudes that like watch a comedian for the first time, and you get to see their reaction.
Yeah.
And they're good. They saw Bill Burr. They were like, Bill Burr's my favorite. It's how I found this. And they're watching Bill Burr and just losing it. That's fun to me. A lot of the sports breakdowns are fantastic. Thanks to the guys that'll just sling a whole Saints game together, play by play.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais and Bill Burr are really the maybe two comedians still out there. Dave Chappelle too. They're not afraid. They're not afraid to go up to that line.
This one, no. Bill and Dave were the ones that like could cross any line, and you can't really offend them. That guy Nate, who I've liked, that just took off. I know there's a whole drama about him picking the Bama game, but my dude just was like on everything all of a sudden. Like he was on Saturday Night Live, ESPN. Now he's a funny guy in a very normal, middle-aged man kind of way. So I like him. So his humor, I don't know if young people would get that humor. It's kind of like Seinfeld now. When Seinfeld talks, he's talking like me and you. He's just saying the same stuff we are.
You ever notice? Yeah,
he's just saying the same thing we are in the kitchen.
He is.
But what I get irritated is my wife would die when Seinfeld said it. But when I said the same thing about her, like not doing dishes or whatever she's supposed to do, she's mad at me.
Yeah.
So the whole show, I'm like, yeah, he's funny. When I said it, I was getting, catching the smoke.
Yep. It's funny how that works, isn't it? Hey, Tim, enjoyed it, man.
Love it. Yeah. We'll see you guys on the round table, and thanks for all your questions. And we're going to finish this season out. We got a couple more games.
A lot of hoops coming up too.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of recruiting coming up. We're going to have all that covered at BamaOnline.com, our roundtable, the message board of choice for Alabama fans around the globe. You need to post up with us there. And if you haven't already, hit that little subscribe button right down there for the YouTube channel and subscribe to @BOL on YouTube. Turn on those notifications. You'll get all this video content as it drops. For Tim Watts, Travis Reier, thanks again for joining us. Until next time, so long, everybody.